talking a lot about teamwork in general and how essential the team that you gather is to the success of your business.
Individual superstar might be an individual superstar, but a horrible team player.
Yeah.
Right?
But being nice doesn't build businesses. I think you can be compassionate in how you build your business, but there's a big difference between the two when it comes to your staff.
Listen, you need to understand that's your second job. Your first job is make this organization successful. Your second is to perform that role.
It hadn't even occurred to her that the team meeting was about them, not her.
Hi, and welcome back, everyone, to the Living Richly podcast. We're so glad that you've tuned in again. We're so thrilled that you continue to support the show. And I'm excited that we're back again with Team Rhapsody.
Back together.
Here we are again.
All wearing the same clothes.
Exactly, right? Well, again, a lot of folks who tune into the show might not know that Rhapsody is our business that actually sponsors the Living Richly podcast. And here we have at the table 5 master coaches that work with businesses and leaders and have been for a long time. I think we figured out it's decades and decades and decades of experience that comes to the table.
We have more years experience than Steve has years.
Wow.
That's a lot of experience.
That's
I have
deep.
a lot of years.
Is that Rob Math?
That was Rob Math.
That's Rob Math. Okay, well, we
Thank
know
you
how
very much.
little we could trust Rob Math. But we're not here to talk about Rob Math. We're here to talk about one of the key issues that is probably one of the primary pain points we hear from leaders. And I could say from the very beginning, when I started working with business leaders, this was the case and is still the case today. Leaders saying, you know what, finding and keeping the right people is so hard.
Yeah, I think maybe it's getting harder.
You're not wrong.
Since COVID, for sure.
I think the challenge, though, so often is there's a gap in the organization. They want to hire somebody. They immediately go into the hiring of someone, but they have not defined the role.
Right.
And they're not clear on actually what the business needs. They can see some pain and they're like, oh, we need somebody to do that. But I'm like, that's not a role. Like that's not a clearly defined role. Getting really clear on what exactly is the role that needs to be filled and what exactly are the requirements that you need, right? What the must-haves, right? The 3 to 5 must-haves, non-negotiable. You cannot allow them. You do not talk to them unless they've got these things really clearly. That's the core. Because I think the wheels fall off right away if they start sacrificing or negotiating those core elements.
100%.
Or they say, I really like that guy. I really like her. I want her on my team.
They hire themselves, right? They're like, they're really good. They're just like me.
It's like they're trying to hire their best friend.
Right, exactly.
But they're not getting clear on what the business is.
Well, you take a step back, even with the pain point that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is that most owners, certainly the ones that I've worked with, they hire reactively. Right? They didn't even think about anything. All they know is all of a sudden there's a position to be filled and it needed to be filled yesterday. And I know certainly, and you probably all had this experience, you start to talk about got to get clear on some of this stuff. And they're like, no, I got to fill a seat.
Yeah,
right.
fear-driven.
And they haven't been proactively planning for hires. They're just reacting, and then they're grabbing the first person that puts in a resume. They'll fill a seat. They're breathing.
Yeah.
That's all they need to hire.
That's right. And today's topic is all about team. We're starting with how do you find the right people and keep them, but we're going to be talking a lot about teamwork in general and how essential the team that you gather is to the success of your business. And if we're hiring fear-based, reactively, emotionally, right, it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I was thinking about this. I was in the eye doctors.
I see what you did there.
Uh-huh. You like that, eh?
I fell into a lens grinder and made a spectacle of myself.
Oh.
Dad joke episode.
You see what I have to put up with.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so I was at the eye doctors, and the 2 doctors are, for those of you who know the lingo in DISC, D. So these are drivers. They're strong personalities. And their entire staff were S's.
The opposite.
The opposite, yeah.
Yeah.
So very quiet, laid back, not into pushing back on decisions or, they might have more of a tendency to agree when maybe they don't agree. And it was fascinating to watch this office operate really, really poorly.
Right.
As a result of that.
Well, I think, again, we hire oftentimes also, there's a lot of, let's face it, insecure leaders out there. And I think we've all been there, and we all have those moments of insecurity. But when someone is insecure, like kind of chronically, we're going to surround ourselves with people that bolster our self-esteem, not necessarily meet the needs of the business. And so we can hire basically our own echo chamber that is only going to allow us to continue to think and act the same way when a high performing team is made up of diverse people with diverse points of view that can really help us think things through at a higher level, right?
For sure. Finding the right people is so critical because they really are the face of your business. They represent what you're trying to, the message, everything that you're doing. Your business will rise and fall based on the kind of people that you have as part of the organization.
And one way, back to Trevor's initial thought, is if we use the metaphor of right people in the right seats, right people, right seats, create the seat first.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what are the 3 to 5 roles? What is their skills, experience?
This is the golden triangle you're talking about.
The golden triangle. Are they the right fit? So what happens is we're just hiring people. We don't really have a clearly defined seat yet.
Right.
And when I know that when we're working with clients, we're not looking at just fixing one thing in the business that needs one person. Let's solve that issue. We help our clients back up and take a bigger picture and just say, where does this fit in the vision of the company, where you're going 3 years from now? Is this the right hire? And so many times it's just, as you said, Rob,
it's firefighting.
It's firefighting.
It's firefighting at its best. And if you hire as a firefighter, you might put out one fire and start 5 more. You've got to come up to the 30,000 foot view, and you've got to hire as a strategist. Where is the business going? What does it need right now? What's the seat that I need to create? I get that sometimes you're going to encounter some really uniquely talented people that you just want on your team, and you don't have it completely clarified what you need them to do. But if that's your hiring strategy as a go-to, that's going to be really problematic. Let's just hire them and see what happens.
Steve and I are both sports fans. We both certainly, when it comes to hockey,
except that you like the Dallas Cowboys, and we're still not sure what that's about.
Not when it
he
comes.
doesn't know anything about hockey.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Not when it comes to hockey, Eric. I was talking to Steve.
Oh, okay.
But
that's it. You're fired.
Right. No, but and we both know this with the teams that we cheer for, that you can have a team that is really significant and really great, and all of a sudden the manager brings on a superstar who causes incredible conflict within the dressing room and destroys everything that you've built to that point. And that's the mistake when you hire without systems and without knowing why and who you want to have fill those seats. You can hire somebody that just has this most incredible resume, has all the experience in the world, but's a cancer in your culture.
Right.
Toxic.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely. We'll talk a lot about team dynamics more on the show because it is critical how your team gets along or doesn't get along and functions together. I mean, we've all seen teams made up of really talented people, but they can't access the team dynamic in a way that really makes the magic come forth. Right?
Yeah. One of the great models that we use with our clients is the Ideal Team Player by Patrick, his book by Patrick Lencioni.
Yeah.
And those 3 characteristics, because an individual superstar might be an individual superstar, but a horrible team player. Right?
Yeah.
Right? They should be working by themselves somewhere.
Right.
But as soon as you integrate into a team to achieve team results, and in that model, it's hungry. So you be passionate, a self-starter, humble. So put others first, listen, and then be people smart. Smart.
Yeah.
So reading the room, emotionally intelligent, agile, and not every high performer is a great team player. Yeah, and it's important. In fact, there are tools that you can use out of that book to ask interview questions. Would this person be a good team player? Maybe they're a great salesperson or a great technician, but would they be an actual team player? Yeah. And that's really good.
So we've talked about 2 tools right now, right? We've talked about the golden triangle and the ideal team player. So just so everybody knows, with the golden triangle, there's one side of it that's called the search side of the triangle. And 2 of those letters stand for experience and skills. And what I love about this golden triangle is that you think about when you've either, as a business owner, let somebody go, or as a team member, watched somebody be fired. The reason they've been fired is because of it's not their skills and experience, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
they've been hired for their skills and experience, but they got fired because of their habits, their attitude. They weren't a good fit. They didn't live by the values of the organization, et cetera, et cetera. So that is what I love. That's how I explain that tool to clients is, hey, you're going to hire for skills and experience. You're going to fire for something else. Right. Why don't you hire for all those things that you're going to fire for so that you get it right the first time?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the ideal team player tool, that's all about getting it right the first time as well.
Right.
Right. And so these tools are so important in helping our clients save themselves like an enormous
it's
amount
so
of
expensive.
time.
Think of the time, energy, money, right, that organizations are burning through because they're not taking the time to hire strategically. What's the old saying, right? We hire too fast and fire too slow, right?
So in the fire too slow is a very interesting one because this is where people's hearts do get in the way. I have a client, their sales team has been a real problem, and they were trying to increase their sales team by 4 people over the course of a year because each person on average brings in $2 million. They're trying to grow really aggressively. They knew there'd be some onboarding time. By the end of the year, they had the same number of salespeople that they had started with, so they didn't grow at all around that. And the challenge is they would bring people on, but then they didn't know how to evaluate them to determine whether or not they should stay there. Right. And this kept happening over and over. And it was, to your point, burning all this time and energy around people's focus and trying to bring more people in and trying to say, well, maybe it's our comp model isn't right. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. What they didn't have was a nice, clear 30, 60, 90-day plan to say, and this is what we did. At 30 days, what activities must they be able to do on their own independently, and what results must they have accomplished? And then what does it look like at 60?
Excellent.
And what does it look like at 90? And if they miss on the first one, they're out.
Right.
And they said, we can't do that. And I said,
Yes, you
good,
can.
perfect. Like, you definitely can. You definitely can. I believe in you. You can do it. But what you find is your top performers want the 30, 60, 90 because they're like, how can I do it in 20? How can I do it in 25?
Exactly,
right?
Exactly.
And it's just transformative so that you immediately have a mechanism to gauge and to make a decision, especially when so many organizations have about a 90-day probation period as well, where if you need to let somebody go after that, it's a whole new ballgame.
I had a conversation with a business owner recently who had just acquired a business and had a member of their team who clearly isn't the right fit, but they felt like, well, they've been through so much. I need to give them the opportunity. I need to give them the chance. I know they're struggling, but it's not fair after all they've gone through. And I made the statement to them. I said, there is a big difference between being nice and being compassionate. You can be compassionate and still recognize, you know what, you've been through a lot, but I'm being compassionate by saying this is the wrong fit for you. Right. You're feeling it. We're feeling it. We need to find either, as you talked about the seats, we need to either find a different seat for you, or we need to help you transition out of the organization. But being nice doesn't build businesses. I think you can be compassionate in how you build your business, but there's a big difference between the two when it comes to your staff.
Yeah, even one of our core values as a company is deep compassion,
right.
Which doesn't mean you just let people off the hook or let people wallow in their misery because we don't want to let them go.
Even Brene Brown says clear is kind. Clear is kind. Right?
This is not a good fit. And that's the kindest thing you can say to someone.
Yeah.
And then they find something else later and they say, I'm so glad that didn't work out there. I found where I should should be, where I want to be.
That awful thing that happened to me was the best thing that happened.
Right, exactly.
And I know that right now we're talking primarily to business leaders, and we'll get back to that in a second. Not long ago, we recorded an entire episode with another local coach. She's a great friend of the Living Richly Nation, Michelle Schaefer. And so if you're watching the show, listening to this episode, and you're trying to find sort of your way in your own career path as a team member, that entire show will be such an amazing, you want to make sure episode 99, we call it the Wayne Gretzky episode.
Yeah, the Wayne Gretzky episode.
You definitely want to tune into that one. Such great advice. That was
Gretzky
such a rich
played for the Cowboys, right?
He did. He played for the Dallas Cowboys, and that's... Well, you think they would have done better.
You think they would have done better.
One of the best basketball players ever.
But let me back us up a little bit, because when we were together not long ago, we talked about organizations struggling to be clear on what their message is and their differentiator, and how to create that winning experience that converts clients into raving fans who keep coming back for more, right? And so much of what we talked about was the need to get clear on who you are, what you stand for, creating a system then to communicate that. How does that apply to hiring? We've talked about some of the tools that we use, but like the organizations, so many of the organizations that I talk to don't really have a system for attracting the they don't even have that defined.
No, and I think, to go back to, it's about clarity. All of this is around clarity. I recently went back and read a book that I've read many times, but just finished reading it over again, and it's Gino Wickman's book, Traction. And he talks, before you even build out your hiring process, you want to create your accountability structure, your chart, right? To figure out what are those keys. And he simplifies this and says almost any, in fact, it's not original to him. He credited somebody else in the book, and I don't remember the individual. But he really just lays it out and says your entire organization can be built into an integrator, your sales and marketing seat, your operations seat, and then your finance seat or support seat.
Yeah, we call that fine grind and mind.
We call it fine grind mind within, and then sometimes you have a visionary on top of the integrator. Creating just that structure, getting clear on the seats that you need in your organization.
Great.
And then you start to build out the hiring process around, how do I hire for those seats?
Yeah, but Rob, I don't have time to do it. We're too busy delivering in the business. This is going to take too much time. How often do we hear that? Right. Is that we continue to do the things that aren't serving us well, and we, because we're counting is the cost and the time it will require of us to do it right,
and the invisible cost of time later. That is way more than the visible.
Huge.
I was working with a client in the construction industry just recently, and they were saying, we don't have time to mentor and train the younger people, and because we got to deliver, we have deadlines, and we don't have time. And then, of course, a month later, it comes back to bite them. A huge mistake is made that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. The cost later to not taking the time is much greater than taking the time today.
Yeah, it's short-term pain for long-term gain. Investing the time and energy to put those things in place will serve you so well. It's the old adage, if you don't have time to do it right, you must have time to do it over and over and over and over, right? Like if you double down, if what you're doing now is not working, doubling down on it's not going to help you. You need to change the dance. And part of that is getting clear on who you are as an organization, what's the seat that we need to fill, right? And then who's the best ideal candidate for that seat, and building in that regard.
Your question around when are you going to have time? Right. Like everyone's saying, I don't have time. It's the truest thing.
Yeah.
No, something has to give.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to make a decision. You have to make a change.
Right.
And I think that hiring piece is great leverage, because think of all the time you're spending with staff that aren't performing in alignment with the needs of the business, in part because they probably don't know the needs of the business. Like all of those pieces cascade right from the hiring. So I always encourage people, the next hire, like let's prepare for it, because that's when you're going to start to gain your time back. Right. Like that's one really powerful mechanism you can use. Otherwise, you never get it back. Yeah. Right? You just keep repeating it.
Exactly. The same mistake over and over again.
And then the other part of the effective team building, of course, is getting the right people in the right seats, but then bringing that team member or team members into the existing group where there's already corporate memory, history, inside joke,
Clicks.
yeah, little clicks like high school.
Yeah.
And I know it's a really, really.
Do we ever leave high school?
Do we ever? I've left high school, but high school has not left me.
Oh no! Are you going to break into song now?
I might.
You just
maybe
it's
some.
gonna be Glee.
It's going to be Vanilla Ice.
Vanilla Ice.
Vanilla Ice. So it's a really old model, but it's so proven, and that's the forming, storming, norming, and performing. And it's from the 60s,
Yep,
but it's
Tuckman.
still so powerful. Recognizing that there's when you're forming your team, there's certain things that you can do to get ahead of what's eventually going to happen, which is some conflict and misunderstanding and different workplace styles. So the way you form it at the beginning, and one great tool that we use is the DISC model,
Right.
the DISC personality assessment, which says, you're coming into a team and we've got some drivers, we've got some influencers, we've got some steady people, we've got some conscientious, and here's what it's going to be like to work on the team. So we're getting ahead of the problem before it starts. And so then when we do hit the storming part, we're already prepared.
Well,
There's better trust.
and the challenge
Higher
with
trust.
that, and the challenge though is, listen, we've all asked this question. Tell me about your onboarding process with your client,
It's usually
or with
crickets.
your employee. Well, it's crickets.
Blank.
It's crickets, or it's what? What happens?
Fear in the headlights. That's
Yeah,
the other
but
one.
Well, they have to sign some forms about HR forms and
They-
all that.
it-
the legal
it's-
stuff
it's-
is
Here's
all
your
Yeah,
login.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's the HR stuff, and then it's here's how you do your job.
Mhm.
Here's the actual pieces. Now go do it. And there's almost no onboarding around your culture, around your people, around your vision, around your values, right? We don't do many organizations fail to introduce and they just hope they get it at some point.
Right.
They hope they fit in. They hope they figure out the inside jokes, all of that, because none of that is included in the onboarding.
No, the phrase that's missing is at ABC company, this is how we do ...
Right.
At
This is our
ABC
process.
company. Not even the process. It's the mental thought, the mental
attitude, the
pros,
spirit.
the
Right.
attitude,
Right.
the spirit.
Yeah,
I
right.
like that.
We used to
piece,
call
yeah.
it the Rhapsody virus.
We did. And then COVID.
And then
came along.
COVID
changed it to the
screwed
Rhapsody
that
way. Ixnay on the virus.
on the virus A, yeah. And now we call it the Rhapsody way.
The Rhapsody way. 100%.
Right? This is the way.
I think people also don't know
This is
how
the
their business works.
Right.
So many people are in organizations that go, hey, listen, I just do my job. This is my thing. I'm like, listen, you need to understand that's your second job. Your first job is make this organization successful. Your second is to perform that role.
Yeah, that's so good.
Right.
Oh, that's so.
In
Like,
that order.
repeat that.
Yeah.
In that order.
Yeah, repeat that for
The-
everybody because
the-
that's that important.
First job for everyone is to build the success of the organization, and the second is to perform your role. But if they don't know how the organization functions, like what is the core way this business works and makes money and serves people and does all of those things, you may be performing your role great, but it may be not aligned. You can't offer or make suggestions about how to improve even your own role or your own growth if you don't understand how it fits in that bigger picture as well. And often people do not have that knowledge. They don't have that in that picture of what's actually happening.
In the you mentioned the traction book. In that model, there's a tool called the People Analyzer.
Love that
It's
tool.
not a great name,
Yeah.
but it's a very
Love the
effective
tool.
tool.
Yeah, they need some marketing around.
Yeah. So the G.
I love it, Gino.
Yeah, Gino.
Great work.
Yeah.
Gino, if you want to sponsor the podcast,
Right. Or come on to the podcast. We're
come on
happy
the
to have you.
podcast.
Get it, want it, and capacity. The GWC, and that first part is get it. Do you get it? Not your job, but do you get how it all fits together? If you're in operations, do you understand how the process is from a sales to the operations to administration? And the key personality, or key position rather, not personality. The key position in that is the integrator, who helps make sure that everybody gets it. And so taking time to do that. And we all know that the business owners that we work with, they want that. They want people to get it.
Of course
It's
they
not
do.
there's a lack of desire.
No,
And-
it's never lack of desire.
No.
And when they don't,
Yeah.
so I have a client where, shockingly, sales and operations are fighting with each other.
Whoa.
Never. Yeah.
And what happens though is if you can help the entire organization get it, they have tons of respect for one another because they understand we're on the same team.
Yeah.
We play different roles, but we're on the same team trying to accomplish the same thing. And until that picture is there, people will point and blame the other people.
Yeah. The silo thing is such
and
a
it all
factor.
goes away then.
Yeah.
It all goes away.
Well, and you had shared this a long time ago around the silos, and I use this with clients often, is silos themselves are not bad. They're actually needed and important, and it's all right for your team to operate in silos as long as they understand that the job is not the silo, it's the product. And it's, again, focusing on that bigger why, really focusing in on the company over your role allows you to now do really good in your silo and celebrate the role of the other silos in creating the product.
I would still encourage a different word than use silo, because it tends to indicate like insulated from everything else. Yes, we want to make sure everyone's playing in their lane, playing in their role and doing their job well. I think often the problem is there's not enough of communication happening. We talked about, again, on that first conversation about your message and your product and how you deliver it. And we talked about the importance of getting clear on your client journey, right? What is the customer journey from start to finish?
Right.
Really savvy organizations are, one, making sure they're clear on what the client journey is, but they also have what is the employee journey? What's it like from start to finish and all those touch points? And they're crafting that very deliberately. I think organizations that have been around for any length of time lose touch with their ideal client. They forget what it's like to be the end user, and they also forget what it's like to be an employee. They sometimes forget what it's like to join a new team.
Well, and some business owners have never been an employee.
Yeah, I'd make a horrible employee. I tell everybody that.
Yes, you would.
I would. I tell people I've been free too long. I wouldn't do well.
And probably a lot of the listeners, there might be some business owners that are listening, of course, but a lot of people are employed or they're on teams, and they're probably feeling the pain, not from a business owner's perspective, but from a team member's perspective, where it feels like this is not organized, there's no sequence, does anybody know what they're doing? And so I think leadership is influence, and so even team members can champion, encourage the business owner, show empathy, and share resources. There's a way to influence, even if you're not the business owner, to help build team in your business.
Let me throw a question on the table here. When we talk about how many business owners tell us, I wish my people were more engaged. I wish they acted more like owners. And usually what they're referring to there is buy-in, engagement, commitment level. Engagement, is that an owner issue or is it an employee issue?
Yes.
Expand, please. Our audience wants a bit more.
Do you want to do one? I'll do the other. Which one do you want to do?
You want to do followership or leadership? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I was thinking both have accountability.
You go.
It's like a healthy relationship. You're both 100% accountable. It's not 50-50.
Yeah.
I think leaders need to cultivate an environment where people know how to be engaged. They have pathways to be engaged. Engagement is received well.
And
very
respected.
often. Yeah, and respected. People will be offering things and they'll be like, shut it down, saying, stay in your lane, do your job, keep your head down. All those messages come back. So I think leaders need to create that space, but also each of us has the power to choose how engaged do I want to be? How do I want to engage in this? And we need to own that. Like we get to own that. Like that's ours. That belongs to us. Yeah. And if we go, well, I'll do it when they say, it's like, right.
Yeah.
So that's what came to mind for me. What was it for you?
Well, leadership, and then this beautiful word followership, which there's an art to leadership where we could say, well, the leader better do something. Here I am. I'm waiting for the leader to show better leadership. Where's the leadership? Yeah. There, you can take responsibility and say, okay, followership. Am I a great follower? Because it's always a one to many. There's always one or two or three leaders and then 15, 20, 30 followers. That's the way life is. Yeah. And there are certain attributes that make people great followers. Right. And that's not diminishing.
No. Not at all.
That's actually really empowering. Yeah. And I don't know how many times I've been on Living Richly podcast, but I feel like every time.
Not enough.
Not enough. More Steve.
More Steve.
I feel like every time I bring up this really proven tool that we use, which is above the line and below the line.
Yeah.
And above, so you have a line.
Above the line behavior and below the line behavior.
Which is taking ownership, taking responsibility, showing determined action. This is me impacting my world. And then below the line is victim behavior, which is pointing fingers, shifting blame. It's life happening to me.
Yeah, it's a victim mentality at its worst.
So when you're on a team, and if it's not going great in some areas, you can still be great.
Yeah,
you can still be a great follower, a great team member. That circle of control, and you're able to say, this may not be my perfect world, because there is no perfect world, but I'm going to take responsibility and ownership for my life.
But and I think it goes to, again, the creating the right systems. Look, here's what I know is that very few people woke up this morning and thought, I can't wait to go to work and screw up. Right? I can't wait to have somebody yelling at me because of the what I've done. And yet it happens all the time. Now, there might be a few that do wake up and think that, but they are in the minority.
Definitely.
People are asking, does what I do matter? Does anyone care? Right? They are, it was Harvard Business Journal that wrote an article written by Eric Deschamps. That is the reality of what people are looking for. And it's our job as leaders, as business owners, to create that followership system and structure. Because I've heard followers say, I tried that. I tried stepping out and me taking initiative, and I got slapped down for it because they did it the wrong way, because they weren't shown how you take initiative in this organization. They weren't shown what you can take initiative with in the organization. Those are all the followership systems and structures that are vital that we put into every company.
Now, there's a lot of people out there watching, I'm sure, who are in organizations that don't have good leadership. And so they've had that experience that Rob just talked about, where they've tried and it didn't go well for them. They're gun shy now. So for the listeners, here's one great way for you to stay in that organization and not feel like you're a victim. And that's by understanding what drama behavior is. So if we go back to the model that Steve was talking about, above the line behavior, below the line behavior is victim behavior. And a lot of the behaviors associated with victim-like behavior is really drama. And drama shows up as things like, well, I can't believe they're making us do that. And then you turn to your buddy and you say, did you see that? And you get angry about it. And you talk to other people about it.
Yeah, you end up projecting it.
You project it on others instead of projecting it to the right people. That's an example of drama.
Well, there's no drama in the workplace, is there? I mean, do we see drama in the workplace? What I read somewhere that the average adult, when they find themselves in any kind of anxiety, social anxiety or conflict, revert back to childhood, adolescent behavior. So people will pout, people will fight, people will retreat.
And that's all the drama stuff.
That's all the drama stuff. And you think of how much productivity is being impacted by drama in the workplace. If you could reduce drama in the workplace by 15, 20%, think of how life-changing
have a sign now, 3 days drama free.
3 days without a drama incident, right?
Michelle, on her episode, she talked about the latest dynamic that's happening. We see it in work culture, and actually, it's interesting. I just read an article about this morning.
I hadn't heard of it.
No, but it came in an article today around. There's a large organization that just made an announcement about everybody being in, and they're rage applying.
That's right.
And that's what's happening.
Rage applying.
So I'm mad at what my boss has decided. So I'm rage applying to other jobs. No intention on taking them, but I'm rage applying to. And she said that's a very common thing. That's
and so you need a system to be able to clearly identify, does this person meet your needs or expectations? Because you're going to get flooded with stuff, and you need a fast way to figure out, are they right?
And by the same token, people are drama applying as well. Like they don't want to be in these toxic environments.
Well, we said it earlier, we hire for skill and experience, but we probably fire for different reasons as owners. Let's face it, let's turn the tables. Most people don't quit a job. They quit a leader.
Yes.
Right. Because of the experience. So, 100% agree that, responsibility and accountability belongs on both sides of that equation. Like any relationship, no one is responsible to only carry the whole thing, but only leaders truly can set the tone in the organization that then others can support and champion. But it's the leader's responsibility to make sure
everything rises
or falls on leadership.
We know at least 2 frameworks or pathways. We know more, but there's 2 that we use very effectively so that it's not just a chaotic formation of teams. There's an actual sequence in place. I'm going to share about one a little bit and someone else can take the other one, but the 5 behaviors of cohesive team is a framework that you can just start, and there is a sequence that start. And you mentioned the word very briefly a moment ago or a few minutes ago, and that's that word trust.
Yeah.
So it starts with trust, and then from trust. So Stephen Covey, the book, the speed of trust, high trust organizations, high speed organizations, low trust organizations, low speed.
Low to no speed.
Well, always second guessing, always looking over your shoulder,
right?
Never stepping up, never volunteering an an idea, holding back.
In those organizations, asking a question can be asking for trouble.
Well, exactly. So again, that's a Patrick Lencioni resource. We've delivered it dozens and maybe hundreds.
Quantifiable.
It's quantifiable. There's measurable. It's a very, very what's the word? Pragmatic. It really is. It's not theoretical. You actually get a trust score for your team, a conflict score, commitment and engagement score. So that's a really good one. And the other one is the sophisticated team model that maybe, Eric, you want to share about that because you were really one of the drivers of creating that.
Right. Well, it came out of the sophisticated leader model that we built, which basically says that the journey of any leader kind of naturally progresses through these stages. And somewhat like Tuckman's model on forming, storming, norming, performing, you can't skip any stage. He tried to just talk about how teams naturally evolve. And understanding that, I think, is critical for any leader because it's funny how conflict averse most of us are. And yet high-performing teams right after trust, Lencioni's model would tell us, productive conflict is where we go. If we trust each other enough, we can enter into the arena, we can debate ideas, we can debate strategy, and no one's getting offended because we're recognizing it isn't personal. I trust you have my back. We only want the best ideas emerging. Well, in the same way, leaders go through, I think, a progression, and you can't skip it. You're an emerging leader, new leader that's just learning the ropes. Hopefully you become an accomplishing leader that's getting results, and that's a kind of exciting, right, to watch that happen. And usually those accomplishments, your team starts to rally around you and you start to see a lot of productivity happen.
Right.
Good mojo, right, in that team, because who wants to be part of a team that's not getting anything done, right? That's kind of like life sucking as opposed to life giving. But most leaders get stuck there. They get stuck at that accomplishing leader stage. And all of a sudden they find themselves overwhelmed. Every decision they have to make, everything comes across their desk. Their team becomes, in many ways, it feels more like a star with a supporting cast, right? And that can be exhausting in time. It's a necessary stage, but you don't want to live there very long because it's actually restricting your growth, the growth of your team, the growth of your company. Quickly, empowering leader is where you want to go next. The empowering leader is the coach, the mentor, empowering others. It goes from star and supporting cast to supporting a cast of stars.
Wow.
Where now you decentralize, and the very power that you had at the accomplishing level, you're now giving more of that. This is truly power to and power with. That's power dynamics. We can talk about that another time, but you're truly giving power away, which is releasing the genius of your team. And then ultimately, sophisticated leaders are folks that have been practicing that for a long time and have a track record. People will leave a well-paying job and take a pay cut to work for a sophisticated leader because you become something more when you work with this kind of leader who's got a track record for investing.
And I can't wait for the third part of this series, this kind of mini series of Rhapsody Coaches, where we talk about, those leaders and the ability, you can't progress your team to those points of being able to release them to be the cast of stars if you're all insecure and worried and you need the attention on yourself, if you can't grow as a leader, if your ego is you're stuck in your ego, you'll never get that in a team. And often we see this with organizations where the owner is blaming, I've got a lousy team, and it's constantly the team. Right. Maybe we need to look into a mirror and see what's really there.
I was delivering the sophisticated team training with a client, and the business owner kept calling it by the wrong name. He instead of sophisticated team, he called it, Steve, come and tell us more about the elegant team. And
but a sophisticated team is elegant in many, many ways.
That's what I was going to say. There is an elegance.
There is.
There's something so beautiful about a machine, a team that's graceful, that's all working together in sync. Oarsmen pulling all in the same direction, and it is elegant when you're sophisticated.
And are so afraid of disrupting the peace, and yet I think a lot of people have bought into the lie that an absence of conflict, if there's no sparks, that means we have unity. And actually, I heard someone say years ago that actually the absence of sparks doesn't mean unity, it means apathy. No one gives a shit enough to actually fight for what they believe in. And again, we're not talking here about destructive conflict that's personal and ugly. That we want to minimize. That's part of that drama that happens all the time. And often the drama is actually not even directed at the person that you have an issue with. We're going over here. Yeah. That's a whole other issue.
It goes back to the 5-year-old.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
It goes back to that childish sort of adolescent behavior that we engage in. But it's this notion again of understanding that mature teams that have trust with one another are able to enter that arena and have those difficult conversations. And we've said it so many times, an organization is the sum of its conversations. But I think most of the conversation, like, can we talk team meetings? If we're going to talk about the conversation, can we talk about team meetings?
No,
I'm leaving. Yeah. Like, what are you guys seeing, and why is the team meeting so ineffective in most cases?
Oh God, it's like where to start.
Wait, we're gonna
so many layers.
Another 3 episodes.
We need another episode.
What's the purpose? Why are we meeting?
So framing the meeting in advance.
Yes, yeah.
So
that's not there.
People are coming to a meeting. They don't know what's going to be talked about. Their apprehension is high, anxiety is high. So they're already entering into the meeting fearful.
Right.
Is somebody getting fired in this one? Or what are we talking about? Who's in trouble today?
Or is this another colossal waste of my time?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Most meetings
9 times out of 10.
The amount of owners that I talk to, and they literally wing it when it comes to their meetings, right? Yeah. They don't have any structure. They don't have any plan. They haven't defined outcomes. All of these things that we recognize as being significantly important to having effective meetings, and they're just winging it, hoping the best is going to happen. And of course, it never does.
Think how crazy that is, right? Think of my team's not performing the way that I want. Where they don't have clarity, and like the one opportunity you have to bring them together weekly, bi-weekly, where you could, right, give that clarity, and you're not even preparing for it. You come in there and wing it, and top of mind, and then you wonder, like, your structure is getting you exactly the results you're setting up for. Right?
And one of the reasons I hear from business leaders that they don't like meetings is because they think their team don't like them. And so I did.
They probably don't.
Well, they probably don't. Yeah. Except I did this little thing with one client where she had said, no, I stopped doing those. I said, oh, why did you stop doing the team meetings? And she said, well, I didn't think they were important. I said, okay. She only had a team of 5 or 6 people. So I said, come on. And I took her and we went around and we talked to each of the 6 team members. And I said, scale of 1 to 10. What did you think of the team meetings? Oh, it was like a 9. I loved those things. Why did we ever stop? Same thing with the next person. Same thing with the next person. And she was blown away because it hadn't even occurred to her that the team meeting was about them, not her. And when she got that, the light bulb went off.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. So much of the work that we do, we prepare to engage with our team. And the meeting is the moment of engagement.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that's when that thing happens.
This
like,
is when you
this
get
is
to
the
shine
go
as a leader,
button,
right?
And that's why I think being clear about what's the purpose of the meeting. And if it's a standing meeting, you got to check in on that purpose from time to time and say, is this still relevant? Do we need to keep doing this? The getting really clear about what actually gets decided and who's actually going to do things, and to be both specific and terrific. Steve dropped this a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It was pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
7 out of 10. 7 out of 10.
And then having the accountability to follow up from the decisions that were made at the previous meeting.
Right.
So we actually
Right.
know, are we doing the things that we need? And those simple actions actually equip your team members on how to actually have a meeting, so their skills improve, so that they can grow into leaders as well. Because if you've got a team that has no opportunity for growth and no capacity, and then you take away your models of growth, which is you, if you're leading in that moment, where do they turn to?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing that is a meeting killer is if you try to accomplish too much
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just thinking.
Yeah.
in one meeting,
100%.
and then you're rushing through everything, and you address one topic, and they say, "Everybody got it? Okay, next," and nobody's discussed it.
Hey, while we're all here.
While we're all here, yeah.
Let's just add another item to the agenda.
So
Yeah.
one of my favorite things I've ever heard Trevor say was he was giving me some help on strategic planning, and gave me this great question, which I love to use. It's this one: what do we need to get absolutely right? And you could even apply that to your meeting agenda.
Yeah, to any part of the business, but definitely.
Yeah, you could have 6 or 7 items on there, but if the owner can say, the one thing I need to get absolutely right in this meeting is this,
Yeah.
and then spend a bulk of time on that, discussing that, coming to clear decisions, solving issues. I think that's a really good way to have a powerful meeting agenda.
I would add to that though, like we teach people a real-time agenda model, because the problem with most business leaders, one, we've already mentioned, they're coming unprepared. Secondly, if they are coming with an agenda, they created it, and it's what's top of mind, right? It's what are the fires
Burning
that are
issues,
burning
yeah.
brightest right now, or burning the hottest right now. And again, all that encourages is more firefighting behavior. There's very little strategy. I would say the vast majority of the leaders we work with are great tacticians and firefighters, but they really struggle at the strategic level. You need to have a meeting structure that pulls you out of top of mind thinking, especially when we're talking like checkup meetings or tactical meetings about how are we doing as an organization and what's in our way. You need to have an agenda that checks in on key performance areas of the business, so that you're looking at it high level and saying, is there anything here that of concern? Right. And you're not the only good thinker at the table. If you want to unleash the genius of your team, part of that agenda is what are burning topics or issues or questions that the team has. And then before you jump in, you end up prioritizing together. What are the top 3 or 4 things that we're going to discuss today? And then we can action the other things. But often, again, our approach to it is flawed. So our results reflect that. Right?
Lencioni has one of his quotes in the 5 behaviors is, people can't buy in until they weigh in.
Right.
And we don't
Love
give
that.
them the opportunity to weigh in. We are often treating our meetings as an opportunity to provide a whole bunch of information. You know, we've all seen the meme, this could have been an email.
This could have been an email.
And the reality is that is the case.
Yeah.
Most of the information we want to use in a meeting should be sent by email. That's the best option, is send it by email in advance. Now you can actually dive into the dialogue and the issues and whatever the top of mind, those most critical things in the meeting, without spending 45 minutes going through a bunch of information, updating stuff that could have been sent in advance.
Yeah.
And one of the things I loved about Get a Grip, I believe it was, or it could have been Patrick Lencioni's Death by Meeting. I can't remember which of them. They
Both
really emphasized this. And I love things about brain physiology, and it's don't try and do strategic and tactical
That was
meetings.
Patrick Lencioni.
It was.
Death by
Okay.
Meeting.
Yeah. Or is. He's still with us.
He is still with us. Yes, very much
very
alive and well.
Very vibrant. Yeah.
Healthy.
Yeah.
Way to go, Patrick.
Table group.
Patrick, if
Yeah.
you're listening, we'd love to have you as a
We'd
guest.
love to have you here. But his big thing is don't do those in the same meeting,
Right.
because it's left and right brain thinking, and the brain does not switch well back and forth between those two sides.
Exactly. Let me throw out one more thing on meetings, and then I want us to switch the conversation perhaps to what organizations are doing to raise up their leaders, right? To train their leaders, and also even looking to the future when we talk about scaling and succession, even what are they doing to raise up their next gen leaders, right? Beyond that. I'll say this last thing about meetings, and we could talk about this again all day long, but another problem with the modern day meeting is if we go back to the personality type training that we do, we two of those personality types, the D and the I, the dominant and the influencer, are very outspoken typically, and are not shy to speak their mind and voice their opinion. The S's, the steadiness, the conscientious folks, they have great ideas, but they tend to hold on to them. They don't share them as eagerly. The modern day business meeting is built for two of the four. We have not done a good job. Most organizations are not doing a good job of tapping into the genius of their less outgoing personality types. We assume, I call it, it's the difference between leadership and loudership. We think that the louder the leader is, the more outspoken there is, the smarter they are. And there's absolutely zero research that would show that. As a matter of fact, some of your quiet people, if you're listening as a leader, some of your quieter team members, stop trying to push them to be something they're not and start tapping into how do I get their opinion? How do I get their feedback? And often that requires maybe some pre-work, some post-work after a meeting, or creating some space for them in the meeting.
Or just even asking them. What do you think about that?
Exactly. There's a lot of work to be done on that. But again,
I was about to say all the quiet followers that are listening are going, yes. And then I thought, no, they're not. They're going, yes.
But don't call on me directly in the
Please
meeting.
don't embarrass me in a meeting because I'm going to die 1,000 deaths. But let's talk about, again, how does an organization, let's face it, let me cue the conversation up this way if I might. Most leaders became a good leader. They got promoted into a management role or a leadership role, not because of their leadership skills. They got promoted because of their doing skills. Like whatever their job was, they were doing a better than average job, and probably were demonstrating some characteristics that were appealing to the owners and the leaders of the day. And so they got promoted, and immediately now are promoted to a role that they're not competent at. And in most organizations, there's very little training or development. So what have you seen, and how do you address that when you're working with your leaders?
Well, it has to be well thought out. So whether you call it a succession or preparing someone for a new role, it all comes back to the leader taking time to think it through strategically.
Right.
And the second order thinking, which is, okay, if I do this with this leader, then what happens? And then what happens? And then what happens? So you're stepping back as a leader, you want to be stepping back all the time and say, where is this going to take me in the future? So I think that doesn't solve all the problems, but part of the problem is we're just putting people in and promoting them without thinking too clearly about it.
Right, 100%.
It's hard to do it alone, right? This is one of those exercises, and yes, shameless plug to coaching. It is hard to do this when you are the one who is in it.
Right.
Yeah. And to be, I love what you said there about the ability to step back and look at everything and to review it is really, really hard for most owners to do. Even for us at Rhapsody, right? Why we have an external coaches, people that we have that come in and do training with our team is because sometimes we can get so caught up in what we're passionate about. It's very difficult to make that step and pull away.
Trevor, I know you like to say you can't facilitate yourself, and so the gift that we give is this to our clients is that space for an hour or 75 minutes to get out of the firefighting and think more strategically. But having said that, that moving that person into that place, promoting them to the point of failure, that can be avoided by just some real practical things,
right?
Just like do an internal interview,
right?
Like don't just promote them, like use it. We talked about the golden triangle,
right?
Do the interview all over again, but do it internally, and then give them a test drive, give them a couple of months and see how it goes. And
I love that, Steve, because we make so many assumptions in that process, right? Because they're good at their job, because they're loyal, because they show up a certain way, they're going to make a great leader. That person might not want to be in a leadership role, and we may actually sabotage what could have been a really successful two-way relationship relationship there because we think the only way to move a person up or keep them engaged is to promote them into another role. There's all kinds of other ways that we can tap into
Suddenly
motivation.
You've lost somebody who's doing a great job in this role, and you've gained somebody who's doing a horrible job in another role.
But let's face it, think of the first time you were in a leadership role. Think of the fear, the anxiety around that. You go from feeling competent at your job and defining yourself as adding value to the organization a certain way. And now all of a sudden you're put into a role where you don't have the experience, you don't have the training, and you feel incompetent.
And talk about imposter syndrome.
Yeah, big time.
We see it in leaders, right?
You need to be deliberate, right? And do it over time.
Yeah.
So many leaders saying, I'm burnout, I'm doing so much, but they won't hand anything over either. I'm kind of going, that's you thing, And I think that's where you can start as a leader to hand over some of those functions to those individuals to try it out and to say, let's try some stuff out. Let's test it. And if it works or doesn't, we can then make some decisions around that. And one of the greatest ways you can do it is, this is so tactical tip here, is every time you go on vacation, delegate one thing. You're going to hand things off to other people around you. If you've got someone who's reporting to you that you've handed something to them, give them an extra hour of time and support and explanation, and never take that task back.
Yeah.
And so each year, if you take vacation 2, 3, 4 times a year, whatever that's going to be, each time you should be permanently handing something off to someone on your team so that they're building their skills. You're freeing up time. They get to grow. You get to learn about their capacity to lead, and you can help them through it. If it's getting bumpy, you can do that. I think that's a nice tactical way to do it. The other piece around the introverts, extroverts is to equip people to not be captured by their style.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So extroverts, own your behavior. Shut up for a minute.
Why am I talking?
Invite other people to speak. Poll the room a little bit. Say, I'd like to hear some thoughts. Be a little more organized and provide information in advance. Don't run stuff last minute. Introverts, step into it. Get into the conversation.
Be willing to interrupt.
Yeah, and so it has
See what I did there?
I noticed. Everyone needs to not just own their label, but say, what behavior does the business require from me in this moment? Yeah. And if it's in a meeting, but I don't feel comfortable speaking. I'm like, this isn't a comfort question. Yeah. This is what's required. So you need to step into that discomfort and to own that.
That's awesome.
And that's a practice as well that requires support.
I'm going to go lightning round with the three of you. That's great advice from Trev. What closing word or words just on the team side of things would you have for the business owners that are listening, or perhaps team owners or team members that are listening, starting with Steve?
I'm going to say, when you think about results, focus on team results, not just my results.
Right.
Because I think we want to win the championship as a team or as an organization. So maybe you're only thinking about your results. Just look up a little higher and say, what are the team results that I can help contribute to winning that championship?
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, I would say whether you are a leader who thinks you have a bad team or you are a team member who thinks you've got a bad leader, the reality is you control what you control, and you need to focus in on the things that are within your control and allow yourself to become really focused there. You'll begin to influence the rest as you do that. But the most important thing is get really clear on the things that are within your control.
Love that.
And to that same point is, if you're in a place where you've been hired into a new position within the organization, you have it within yourself to get clear from your boss, from your manager. Yep. Ask them, where's my job description? It's not detailed enough. What's going to tick you off in this role? Get specific, keep asking questions, ask for metrics, ask how you're going to get a pay increase, ask all of those things. Take control over that. You have that option.
That's right. Take ownership of your role. And I would say, as we prepare to close, whether you find yourself as a team member or a team leader or a business owner, you're never as stuck as you think you are. There's always a way forward. There's always a better way. Folks, thank you for tuning in. I hope you have found this conversation helpful, this conversation about teams today and how crucial they are to your business's success. Living Richly Nation, thanks for tuning in. Of course, we encourage you all to check out our website, livingrichly.me, where you can find out all the information about the 15-day Life Vision Challenge and the Living Richly Nation, which is our exclusive Facebook group. Hundreds and hundreds of wonderful people in that community that are doing their best to live their best life, and we encourage you to join that. And of course, if you've heard something here today from these master coaches at Rhapsody that has piqued your interest either as a team leader or as a business owner, then check out rhapsodystrategies.com. That's our website where you can find out how to get great help to take your business, your team, and your leadership to the next level. Folks, thanks for tuning in, and until next time, get out there and live your best life.